Natalie, thank you so much for taking your time today and joining us. It's really a great honor and pleasure to have us here, to have you here with us. And yeah, thank you. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lila, the divine play. Well, first of all, let me say I'm coming to you from Topanga Canyon, ancestral Chumash lands. I think it is so important to recognize whose land we're on and the work that the indigenous people of whatever land we're on has done to make sure that these lands are green, to make sure that the waters are still pure, etc. And I know that the Chumash lands that I'm on, the Chumash people are actually fighting right now for to protect the San Marcos foothills just north of here. And so just recognizing the land that I'm on right now, which I think is important for me to do, land recognition anytime I start anything. So, okay, Lila, I think those are a lot of questions. Let me see if I remember. So I guess, well, let me introduce myself. My name is Natalie Vie. You can call me Nava, which means 9 in Sanskrit. Nawel means jaguar in Mapuche, which are the ancestral lands that my ancestors are from in Argentina. But not Nava or Natalie is just fine. Natalie is my government name, my birth name, which means beginning. So it's also beautiful. And I'm coming here, carrying the message of Oak Flat, which is the land that I was raised on. And so I was born on Tangba lands in Long Beach, California, or what's now known as Long Beach, California, raised in Phoenix, Arizona. And just east of Phoenix, there's an amazing mountain called Oak Flat, which is ancestral Apache lands. The Apache people were forcibly removed from those lands about 150, almost 200 years ago now. But when you go, you can see that it is a lush mountain. It's a food forest. You can tell that the ancestors built up this food forest over thousands of years. You're in the middle of the desert, and all of a sudden you're ascending up this mountain, and you're in this magical oak forest with manzanita berries all around you. And so it's really incredible. If you were raised in Phoenix, or if you live in Phoenix, the water that you're drinking probably comes from Oak Flat. It probably comes 15% of the water supply in Phoenix comes through the sacred mountain. And so for me, I feel that I am a part of this mountain, that I'm tied into this mountain because I grew up drinking the water that goes through these mountains. And so the spirit of this mountain lives inside of me in a way. And like Lila said, I fence on the US team. In 2018, my team and I made US history by winning the first ever Women's Epee World Cup. We've never, won a world championship or a World Cup before 2018. I won US Nationals 4 times, and fencing has really given me a lot. And one of the last Olympic qualifiers was in Russia a few weeks ago. And if you go to my IG page, you'll see Supersonic Nava NAVA that I publicly withdrew from that tournament. A warrior needs something to fight for. And I just did not feel like I could fight wearing the stars and stripes and representing the US in good conscience when I knew that Oak Flat, this sacred mountain near the lands that I grew up on, the sacred mountain that has given me clean air and clean water my whole life, and that has helped raise me, is in danger of being mined and bought and sold and destroyed. And so this beautiful sacred mountain that is full of lush forests, that recently there was a jaguar sighting. A lot of people don't know that we have jaguars in Arizona, but we do. They are now making a comeback. There was a jaguar sighting a few weeks ago in early March. There's the ocelot and the hedgehog cactus and a number of endangered and at-risk species that are that live in these mountains. Not to mention, this mountain is a holy land. It is the center of Apache religion. and it is in danger of being mined. And so this fight is really in Elder Winsler Nosey has said that this is this mountain, this holy land, like it's a lot more than just this one mountain. There will be repercussions of this, you know, around the world. Yeah, so I'm coming here carrying the prayers of Oak Flat and hoping that I'm amplifying the message of Apache Stronghold. And I'm trying to redirect people to visit the Apache Stronghold website, apache-stronghold.com. They have a number of ways that you can take action, which includes donations, includes letter writing to our senators, and includes making phone calls to the House of Representatives in Arizona. A number of action plans that you can take. There's a number of ways to get involved. But yeah, I hope I answered all the questions, Leela. I'll also say that I have these berries here, so whenever you know, I'm able to, I don't know if you can see this now, but I have these manzanita berries, and the berries are from Oak Flat, so there are acorns on top, which these are actually acorns from the mountain that I live on here on Chumash lands, but the berries are the manzanita berries from Oak Flat, and they're incredibly sweet. They're all over this amazing mountain, and the emery oak is the only oak one of the only oaks in the world, if not the only oak, where you do not have to leach it to get the tannins out. You could just eat the acorn right off the tree. And remember Wensler saying in a court hearing that it takes the emery oak 100 years to grow a single acorn. And so these are really ancestral trees. These are really ancestors that we're amongst. And it can't just be, this forest can't just be rebuilt somewhere else. Rio Tinto is, I feel called to continue sharing about Oak Flat and about, the way that it's in danger, but Rio Tinto is a mining company based out of Australia. It's a foreign mining company that is potentially going to be mining this sacred mountain in Arizona against the will of the people. And it's really important to mention that this is a foreign mining company because in Australia, they actually destroyed a sacred mountain to some of the Aboriginal people in Australia, including in destroying artifacts. And that was just in December. That wasn't that long ago. And so it really is incredible that this company is even, that anyone is even considering that this company could come and desecrate the land and destroy ancestral lands in this holy place, and that it would be appropriate at all. Yeah, so I'm hoping that we can raise awareness of what's going on these mountains, and that we can support Apache strongholds, and also recognizing that that on a lot of these lands that we are that we want to protect, it's really important to also recognize that there are people that have been living all over the world, right? And so it's really important that we make sure and we check in with Indigenous people. We make sure to check in who the Indigenous people of the land are and what efforts are already being taken to protect these lands and how we can amplify those efforts. And I say that because sometimes we forget, sometimes in an earnest way, we want to protect lands and we want to do good work, but it is really important to check in to see who are, first of all, the Indigenous people of the land that we're on, and what work is already being done to protect these lands, and how can we amplify their message, and how can we amplify their work, because oftentimes people might already have a 10, 11, 12,000 year relationship with the land. They might have already cultivated the relationship and culture around these lands, or around a mountain, or around a particular river. And so deferring to our brothers and sisters that have been developing this relationship over thousands of years, and really deferring and referring to them for land protection is really important.
Wow, thank you so much, Natalie, for this explanation of your journey. really, it's a super inspiring journey, especially right after this call. Like you shared a little bit with us that you actually had the opportunity to travel to Russia for like a nationwide, like a global concourse, and you heard the call that you actually don't want to go there to compete, that you would prefer going back to where you were born, where you were raised, where your roots are, because there is this mountain and the oak flat that is really needing support. And right now, we're basically entering into a month of Gaia, because it's on the 22nd of April, it's World Earth Day. And therefore, we are really looking forward to promote like all projects that are related to earth protection, to the protection of the lands, to the protection of biodiversity, waters, plants, animals. And also, as you said, the local indigenous communities that has been living there since thousands and thousands of years. And I would just love to ask you a question, like, what was this calling and how did it feel exactly when you decided to not go to Russia to follow your career, your athletic path, but actually go back to raise awareness of what's going on, that there is an external and foreign company basically willing to create a mine on one of the most sacred mountains of your childhood birthplace?
Yeah, well, it's not my birthplace because I was born on Tongva lands, but it was where I was raised since 3 years old. So this mountain helped to raise me. But great question, Leela. So first, let me say I've been fencing for 17 years. I've been fencing for almost 2 decades. I've been on the world team. I've done 10 consecutive world tours, and I have trained for 3 Olympic teams. So this would have been this is the 3rd Olympic cycle that I had trained and competed for. And after a year of not fencing because of COVID, we had no competitions for about a year. I realized there was nothing in my body that wanted to go to Russia to fight and compete for the US, especially if it meant that I would be perpetuating harmful cycles. And honestly, I even feel conflicted about taking flights, taking that flight, that really long flight, and all of the carbon footprint that I would be making. There's something that just didn't feel right about that. And there's something that that's something that we should all consider, is like when we're traveling to these amazing places. It's number one, when we travel to an amazing place, like how can we make sure that that we're offsetting, or the good that we're doing is actually greater than the harm that we're doing. Even when I eat, sometimes I had to come to this realization when I became, when I was doing my yoga teacher training, and I was already vegetarian, but I really started to think about this deeply. Like I have to kill plants, somewhat to live. And is that right? And I came to the conclusion that if the good that I'm creating from eating these plants and from them giving their life to me is greater than the harm that I'm creating, then I could be okay with that. But that's part of life, and that's part of the circle of life, is that there is this reciprocity, and there's this taking, and then there's this giving, right? And when we're with the land, there's a taking, and then there's a giving, right? When we eat, there's a taking and there's a giving. When we breathe, there's a taking and there's a giving. And hopefully, all the actions that we do, we're only here on Earth for a finite amount of time, and hopefully, all the cumulative actions that we've taken in our life gives back to the earth in a way that's greater than what we've taken. We have put more magic, we have built more gardens, we have protected the land in a way that is in right relationship with ourselves for future generations, that it is in a way that's in right relationship with the earth around us. And so that living in reciprocity is something that we've lost. Living in a late capitalist society, this is a late capitalist society. I can see where the old models of capitalism are dying, and living in a late capitalist society, we have been raised in a society where there are extraction patterns everywhere. Education system, insurance, buying a car, everything is an extractive pattern. Everything is taking and is extracting from the land, and not in a way that's giving back. And so how can we repattern ourselves, repattern and rewire the extractive pattern that we have been raised on, right, is really important, and it's imperative to do. I see Sam was going like that. And but yeah, but that is probably one of the biggest things in my lifetime that I'm having to repattern is, like, is coming to terms with, first of all, that I have been raised in an extractive system, and second of all, also recognizing the ways that the system has extracted from me, being a woman and being a brown woman, being born into a brown body as a Latina, quote unquote, woman. Like, I've even had to take the shackles off of my mind, like, once I dropped that term of being Latina, I realized that I am a lot older than 500 years. I began before the time of colonization. My body is not just 500 years old, I'm actually thousands of years old. And before that, millions of years old, because I come from stardust. And it's sorry about that. Doesn't everybody know I'm on Zoom with you guys right now? I got a phone call. But even before that, like, once I could recognize that, I saw that I am actually, everyone is my relative. Right? The trees are my relative. We do have a common ancestor. The stars are my relatives. We have a common ancestor. At some point, we are relatives with all of these beings. And I have medicine to offer them as they have medicine to offer me, right? And so I do feel that it is my responsibility, being raised in Phoenix, Arizona, being raised off of this mountain, being raised off of the waters that came through this mountain, I do have a responsibility to protect her, because this mountain is my relative. And I know that in English, we have a language that has a lot of nouns. We don't have a lot of verbs in our language. We have a lot of nouns in our language, which means we tend to objectify the trees, the rivers, and the mountains. Like, there are a lot of I don't know if you've read the book Braiding Sweetgrass, but Robin Wall Kimmerer said that when she was relearning her ancestral language, a bay was a verb. How do you be a bay? But that's what it is. A bay is a verb. And so all of this objective language that kind of that we've even been programmed to look at the world in a way that is not alive, that is objectified, is actually, we need to start decolonizing that. We need to start removing the limitations of language even, so we can start to see the world as alive. Because these mountains, these rivers are alive. Oak Flat is alive. This mountain, the sacred mountain, does not want to die. She does not want to get executed, because that is what's happening. That's what's happening not just at Oak Flat, but to the San Marcos foothills on Chumash lands. That's what's happening with Mauna Kea on Kanaka Maui lands in Hawaii. That is what's happening with the Wirikuta Mountains, the Sierra Madre Mountains, that are also in danger of being mined. All of these sacred places, and the whole world is sacred, are in danger of being mined, but they are alive, and if we can do that to the mountains, if we can do that to the rivers and to the land, how are we treating women? To me, it's the same. How are we treating women?
So Natalie, as you're saying, like, this is not just happening at the Oak Flat. This is happening all around the world all the time, and it's a huge problem that most people are really not aware of. So what are some concrete action steps that people can take to support the protection of those forests, to support like the movement that really leads towards like the nourishment and the regeneration of those lands, and that first of all, like, stops foreign companies or other people to enter to those lands and basically start like cut the woods down and build mines there. Like, for me, this is so it's like incredible, but it's happening all the time. So what are some concrete action steps and things that people, individuals and NGOs, can take in order to protect those lands?
Right. Okay, well, a few things, because there are some long-term actions that we need to take if we're going to create long-term solutions. And that has to do with decolonizing our minds, decolonizing ourselves, and recognizing the land that we're on, right? And then there's also stuff that we can do right now in the moment, because there is land protection and land action. There is action that needs to happen now. So let me start with what needs to happen now. What needs to happen now is step number one is for each of us to look up whose land we are on, what indigenous land we are on. That is absolutely important, because no matter where you are, there are indigenous people wherever you are. And how can you start to protect the sovereignty and amplify the voices of the indigenous people whose land we are on right now. There's an amazing app called native.land. I suggest everyone download it right now. And first step, look up whose land you are. Anytime you give a speech, anytime we start talking to other people, recognizing whose land we are on, right? Just as I did at the beginning of this, I'm on Chumash ancestral lands. We need to start all doing that. That is one way that we can start decolonizing, decolonizing and restoring, right, the land we're on, because we all need to start restoring the incredible land that we're on and that narrative. And then second of all, in terms of concrete action that we can take right now, if you feel called to protect Oak Flat, as I am, if you feel called to protect Oak Flat, visit the Apache Stronghold website, www.apache-stronghold.com. There are a number of actions you can take. One of the actions that I have been taking right now is to amplify the voice of the Apache people, right? So at Protect Oak Flat on Instagram, I've been reposting anytime that a Protect Oak Flat has reposted anything, I repost that. Number two is we can start calling our senators for Arizona and Congress, Arizona Congress, to present and to vote in a bill to permanently protect Oak Flat. This fight has been happening for almost 20 years, and it's time for permanent protection of Oak Flat. This is federally recognized. This is land that has been federally recognized as land of historical importance, right? And so it's federally recognized in that way. And so there needs to be permanent protection for Oak Flat. This fight cannot go on for 20 more years. It's crazy. And this amazing mountain, if it is mined, would become a crater in the earth the size of the Eiffel Tower, about 7,000 feet into the ground. It would reach the aquifers, and the tailings of the mine would be, this is the largest copper reserve in the country. That's why this is home. That's why there are powers that are trying to mine this land, is because there is a copper reserve. The largest copper reserve in North America is under these mountains. And you can feel it when you go up into these mountains. You can feel that your nervous system changes. You can feel something in your belly because the potency of the copper that's in the belly of the mountain is so strong. You can feel that there are changes to your nervous system as you go up into these mountains. If anyone's been to Sedona, it's the same thing. There's so much iron in Sedona, in the floor of Sedona, that you feel grounded and you feel like these energetic shifts in your body. Same thing with Oak Flat. There's so much copper in the belly of this mountain that you feel the changes in your body, right? There are physiological changes that are happening as you ascend into Oak Flat. And so I'm calling for the protection of Oak Flat. And there are a number of actions. If you want to donate to Apache Stronghold, that's also very much accepted, and there are links to donate on the Apache Stronghold website. And in terms of a long-term solution, we need to all start building gardens, right? We need to start building gardens and tending to the land. Tending to the land will bring you deeper. Once we can start practicing tending to the land and practicing deep listening to the land herself will guide you in ways that you didn't even expect, right? A lot of the journey that I've taken, especially over this last year, not competing, not flying, not leaving the land that I'm on, but just rooting myself even deeper onto the land that I'm on, and especially being so close to my birthlands, I've really been guided in a way that is deeper and unexpected than any way I could have expected. And what every land needs is different in different areas. Where you guys are in Costa Rica, what the land needs and what the land is calling for is very different than what the land needs here in Topanga Canyon, which is different than what the land needs, on Apache ancestral lands, etc. And so I do envision a world where we have clean water, where we have clean air, and where we have land that is full of gardens, because that's what humans have always done. And as a reminder, that word indigenous, what does indigenous mean? It has Greek roots. It means in and of Gaia, I don't know if you guys knew that, in and of Gaia. And we all come from indigenous people somewhere in our roots. We are indigenous to the earth. You know, that's who we came from. We would not be here today if we did not come from plant people, if we did not come from people that had herbal wisdom, if we did not come from people that built food forests, that knew how to tend and to listen to the lands. And at some point, we started to lose that. For some of us, the break was a lot earlier on, and colonization happened thousands of years ago, right? And for some of us, it happened, you know, not that long ago. And then some of us, like myself, where we have mixed ancestry from different places, from the Americas, from Europe, from North Africa, etc. And some of that colonization can be traced and some of it cannot. But we come from the earth. We are children of the earth. And when you start working with the land, and we start putting our hands, at least it's been my experience, putting my hands on the earth, there's a remembrance that happened, right? To remember, to bring back these members, right? To bring back the miembros, the miembro member, to bring back the parts of ourselves that we didn't even know was missing. And so in terms of a long-term solution, it is really important that as we're working in the short term, right, calling senators, writing letters, raising funds, making sure that we're connecting people that have capital to these amazing projects that need capital, as we're amplifying the voices of indigenous people, that we're also doing the work within ourselves to decolonizing, that we're also doing the work within ourselves to make sure that we're living in a way that's reciprocal, that we're living in reciprocity with the land, and not in a way that we're just continuing to extract, and that we are perpetuating the extractive patterns that we've been raised on.
Wow, I feel like it's really, really intense. Like, you see, right now I'm really surrounded by nature, as you guys can see, in the midst of the forest. And there are 8 indigenous tribes living in Costa Rica. And at the same time, there are so many foreign investments coming here to like build new houses, build new hotels, reforest, just cut off all the rainforest. And luckily, Costa Rica is pretty far in what the environmental policies are, because tourism is such an interesting asset for Costa Rica itself. But really what the world needs is more people like you, Natalie, that really are like sticking to their heart and sticking to their truths and hearing the call of Gaia, and really answering this call and bringing people together to stand up and create more awareness and education on what it really, really means to be of service of our Mother Earth.
This mountain is sacred. She's calling her warriors. She says my life will not be taken. Please spread my message far and wide. Hey, 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 hey,